For decades, a prominent view in Western academia held that ancient India lacked a codified strategic culture. Analysts like George Tanham argued that Indian statecraft was primarily shaped by religious idealism and mythology, rather than calculated geopolitical strategy. Contemporary Indian diplomats and scholars have challenged this assumption. They point to historical records proving that complex geopolitical calculations have been a fixture of the subcontinent for thousands of years. The primary evidence for this is the Arthashastra. Written by the scholar Kautilya, this treatise established the principles of political realism centuries before the foundations of Western statecraft were codified. This was the operational manual for the Mauryan Empire. Kautilya designed these protocols to manage the rapid expansion of a massive imperial power. The Arthashastra demonstrates that realpolitik was systematized in India millennia ago. It represents a rigorous theory of offensive realism developed independently of Western influence. To understand Kautilya's approach to governance, we have to look at the bedrock axiom of his worldview, Matsya Nyaya, or the logic of the fish. It describes a chaotic state of nature where bigger fish swallow the smaller ones. Without central authority, the strong inevitably devour the weak. This aligns with the modern international relations concept of anarchy, the recognition that the international system is inherently hostile because it lacks a global governing body to protect the vulnerable. Kautilya argued that the state's primary purpose is to survive this anarchy through the pursuit of artha. This translates to material well-being and rapid wealth generation alongside vast territorial expansion. Because the international environment is a state of constant war, the government must be engineered internally for perpetual conflict. A ruler cannot rely on morality to secure the state. Kautilya mapped the internal requirements of power through the Saptanga theory, identifying 7 limbs essential for a state to function. The Swami, the king, serves as the life force at the center. Supporting him are the Amatyas, Janapad, Durgas, and Mitra. He designates the Kosha, treasury, and Bala, army, as the primary drivers of state power. His approach to administration was unsentimental. He viewed human nature as inherently prone to change, noting that officials are like horses at work who may easily turn toward corruption. Maintaining state capacity required constant auditing and systematic reforms. Kautilya advocated for the frequent transfer of officials and the use of a vast intelligence network to prevent the loss of state revenue. An aggressive foreign policy is only possible after securing this financial and military bedrock. The external projection of power depends entirely on internal discipline. Once the state is internally secure, Kautilya uses a mathematical model to view the outside world. This is the Mandala theory, or the circle of power. At the center of this geopolitical map sits the Vijigishu, the ambitious conqueror. The first law of the mandala is dictated by land. Immediate neighbors competing for resources are natural enemies. The second law looks one step further. The state directly behind your enemy shares a structural interest in weakening them, making them your natural ally. Alliances here are not based on shared values, but determined by spatial proximity and the objective mechanics of the balance of power. This map is dynamic. As a state expands its borders, its neighbors change, instantly recalculating who is a threat and who is a friend based on the new geometry of the frontier. The mandala serves as a spatial calculator, demonstrating that a state's foreign policy is a product of geography and structural position. Within this mandala, the Shadgunya Niti provides an algorithmic flowchart of 6 strategic options. When weaker than an adversary, the prescribed policy is sandhi, or kees, to buy time. When power is equal, the matrix suggests asana, neutrality, or dvaitibhava, diplomatic double-dealing. Only when surpassing the adversary's capabilities does the matrix output vigraha, war for political dominance. Kautilya prioritized achieving objectives without the high cost of open war. He outlined 4 diplomatic methods: sama, or conciliation; dana, the use of gifts; beta, sowing dissension; and danda, the application of force. If war becomes necessary, the text identifies 3 types: parakrama, or open warfare; kut, which uses guerrilla tactics; and tushnim, or silent war, involving espionage and sabotage.
This matrix provides a purely logical mechanism for survival. It removes personal emotion from statecraft, focusing entirely on dominance and resource management.
The Arthashastra operates as a sophisticated systems theory of government, where every administrative part supports the strategic whole. Internal stability creates a surplus in the treasury funds the military, and the military navigates the geographic realities defined by the Mandala map. This level of integration provides the evidence missing from George Tanham's thesis. It shows that ancient India developed a strategic culture centered on the cold mechanics of power. Kautilya's framework mirrors the core pillars of Western political realism, despite predating them by over a millennium. Modern Indian leaders have long noted these historical parallels. In The Discovery of India, Jawaharlal Nehru famously described Kautilya as the Indian Machiavelli. While both thinkers share a commitment to pragmatism, Kautilya's work is arguably more mathematically rigorous in how it defines the spatial and structural requirements of the state. His methods also anticipate the work of 20th-century classic realists like Hans J. Morgenthau, specifically regarding the mechanics of the balance of power and the formation of shifting alliances. The Arthashastra remains a foundational blueprint for understanding international relations. It proves that geopolitical realism is not a uniquely Western intellectual tradition, but a universal set of mechanics for the exercise of power.